It's almost sentencing time for the backdoor judge. No one is above the law, particularly judges. 10 to 16, Doogie is saying 0. Time served is good enough. And ultimately, we'll see what the judge hands down.
2 days. 2 days. That's what's left before we find out if the anti-ICE judge out of Milwaukee walks away clean or walks into a cell. Today we're reacting to the breakdown of both sentencing memos, what the DOJ wants, what her defense is begging for, and whether this woman has shown 1 ounce of accountability. Let's get into it.
Citizens enter courtrooms expecting that the rules will be followed and that justice will be administered fairly, and that the person wearing the robe will honor her oath to uphold the Constitution and to faithfully and impartially discharge her duties under the law. But when faced with a situation in which the defendant personally disagreed with the lawful actions of the feds, she abandoned that oath. Rather than uphold the law, she used the power and the prestige of her judicial office to obstruct these federal agents, carrying out their lawful duties in order to help an individual evade arrest. And in doing so, she placed the interests of a criminal defendant above the rights of the victims and used her colleague to facilitate the crime and place law enforcement agents and members of the public in danger by undermining the arrest plan. In fact, resulting in a foot chase, moving traffic outside the courthouse. And so we say that the advisory guidelines range is 15 months to 21 months.
Okay, so that's what the whole DOJ's pitch in a nutshell, and I don't think they're wrong. The guidelines put her at 15 to 21 months. Prosecutors aren't even naming the exact number in their filing. They're just pointing out, at average for cases like hers, which sits around 16 months, and letting the judge land somewhere in that range. Here's why I think that ask is fair. She wasn't a scared defendant caught up in a bad moment. She was a sitting judge, law degree, robe, oath, and she used all 3 to help a man accused of beating 3 people walk out of the side door while federal agents stood in the hallway with an actual warrant. The DOJ's argument, boiled down, is judges get discretion. That discretion is not a backstage pass to override federal law enforcement because you personally don't like the policy. She crossed that line on purpose in real time in front of witnesses. That's not a technicality, that's a job. But real quick, if you're new here, if you like this type of videos, hit the subscribe button because many of you who are watching this right now are not subscribed. Let's get back to it.
So talking about sentencing disparity, we don't think that she should be punished more aggressively. And so the range should be 0 to 6 months. And so the sentencing guideline range doesn't reference the conduct in this case. And so for these reasons, the proposed range significantly overstates the seriousness of the conduct. And the other effects of this, saying they handcuffed her, they shackled her ankles. Local FBI agents were instructed to photograph her. And then Kash Patel posted a picture. Then AG said Dugan was deranged, and so they were really mean to her from the DOJ. And so she will address the court at sentencing. And so in conclusion, this is already a deep price. There's been unnecessary public humiliation of Dugan's arrest, and we think the punishment has already been served. And so in total, what we want is a sentence of time served.
And this is the defense ask, 0 time served, which is hilarious. I mean, and understand this argument. This is what the job of a defense attorney is, trying to get your client not to go to jail. But let's push back on this. Nearly 20 character letters got filed for her. Judges, a former DA, people talking about her faith, her decades of nonprofit work, basically painting her as a saint who happened to have a federal obstruction conviction attached to her name. None of those letters answered the actual question. Did she break the law? A jury already said yes. Did she help a man accused of beating up multiple people evade a lawful federal arrest? Also, yes. I suffered enough is not the same as I was wrong. Those are 2 completely different arguments. And her team keeps making the first one because they can't make the second one because she still doesn't think she did anything wrong. And that's the gap right there. That's the whole ball game.
She continued to characterize her conduct, which a jury found criminal beyond a reasonable doubt. She said it was appropriate, it was justified, it was legally permissible. And to be clear, the government doesn't seek punishment for her exercise of her constitutional right to trial. She can have a trial, but the court simply should consider her continued minimization of this conduct and her persistent refusal to acknowledge wrongdoing until now. Now her refusal to acknowledge the wrongfulness of her conduct raises legitimate concerns about her respect for the law and suggests a continuing belief in her personal disagreement that you can obstruct federal agents.
So let's answer the question I know you're probably asking as well. Has Hannah Dugan apologized? Has she said, I overstepped, I was wrong? No, not once. She fought the charges at trial instead of taking a plea. She lost. Then she tried to get the verdict thrown out twice, leaning on a completely different case out of the Fourth Circuit that a federal judge said didn't even apply here. Denied again. And her team has already said whatever happens Wednesday, they're going to appeal this to the Seventh Circuit anyway. That is not the posture of someone who accepted responsibility. That's someone who still believes that she was right, hoping the sentence is light enough that being right doesn't necessarily cost her anything. And prosecutors are making exactly that point in their memo. Her refusal to admit wrongdoing isn't neutral. It actually cuts against her because a lack of remorse means nothing stopping her from doing this again if she ever got back in that position. No apology, no plea, just appeal, and a defense memo asking for mercy that she actually haven't earned on those merits. Think about this like a lifeguard who pulls someone out of the deep end, except that someone is the guy who shoved 3 people underwater, and the lifeguard did it purposely to keep the actual water patrol from doing their job. That's not a rescue. That is an obstruction with a whistle around your neck. That's exactly what the DOJ is arguing that happened in the Milwaukee courtroom. Dugan wasn't protecting the defendant's rights. The victims in the case, the people that Ruiz was accused of assaulting, sat in the courtroom for over an hour, never got told what was happening, and was left confused when the man walked out the back door under the judge's discretion.
And so the U.S. acknowledges that she did experience collateral consequences. Yeah, she lost her judgeship, but those consequences are appropriately considered, but they don't outweigh the seriousness of her offense. She was entrusted with exceptional authority and public confidence, and it was precisely that position of trust that enabled her offense.
The people this was supposed to be about didn't get in on the plan. That's the part that should make everyone uncomfortable, no matter where you land on ICE policy. This isn't a story about an immigration enforcement at its core. It's a story about a public official deciding her personal read of the law outranked everyone else in the room, including the people she was sworn to serve. And I think it's important to send a strong message to other judges out there that believe that they're above the law, that they think they can override federal law. It's not going to work. It's not a great idea. You're there to be the referee, not someone there trying to fight back because you do not like Trump or you do not like the way things are going in terms of the immigration policy. You can't just put the law in your own hands just because you're a judge. You're not Judge Dredd. You are Judge Dugan, or actually former Judge Dugan. So sentencing is Wednesday, July 8th, 11:15 a.m. in front of the judge. The DOJ wants somewhere around 15 to 21 months. Dugan wants no time, no apology on the table either way. We'll be back the second the gavel comes down and tell you exactly what she gets and whether justice actually shown up to court that day. Do I think she's going to get any jail time? I don't think so. If I had to really think about it, do I think she's going to get any jail time? No. I think she'll probably get some kind of house arrest. That's just my opinion, but let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Judge Dugan is going to receive any time on Wednesday? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.